bizarre life. I'm not going to go through the details of everything, but I've seen God. You don't have to believe me. I've lived long enough now, and in the knowledge that I know I've seen God, it's just your opinion, whether you believe I've seen God or not. But I, through my journey, set myself in a place where faith was endured through things in my life. So even whatever frame of mind I've been in, I've always had that faith to achieve. And the knowledge that I got for a security solution started really with the Bible. In the Bible, it says the body was different members. And I started to dissect the body in different ways as being different members, like the eyes, the nose, the mouth. And then my security solution came to me because I was doing a web page on speech, if you like, and the knowledge about, I looked into the depths of how language could derive, because if you've got a word, you need the meaning of the word to know the word. So it's almost as if you needed words before a word existed. And you needed letters to enable the word, to enable the sentences. So I started to talk about what came first, the letter, the word, or the sentence. Because every word seems to have a meaning, and if you've got a meaning, that means you're describing the word with a sentence. So the reason I started thinking of that is, I remember it, is the fact that I was looking in the dictionary when I was younger, and I was looking for the meaning of a word, and inside that description of the word there was a word I didn't know the meaning to. So then I looked for the meaning of that word, and in the description of that word there was a word I didn't know the meaning to. So this is where my thought process was at the time. So at that time I was building a website. I was trying to get people to believe in God rather than evolution, because there's two ways of looking at life. There's God or evolution. And because I've seen God, and I I was in a frame of mind where I wanted to retrieve knowledge, or try to retrieve knowledge that might be different to other people's and maybe cause a debate. For instance, I came up with something a little while ago. The evolution explanation of flight is pretty much something started growing wings and started flying. Well, how did I find something that would, it's out of the box thinking really. So I used to go fishing, and I know where flies come from, and I just wondered how a maggot turned into a chrysalis and then turned into a fly. The same with a caterpillar turning into a chrysalis, turning into a flying creature. There's no stage of learning, is there? The stage of flight is instant as for when the chrysalis opens. So the learning of flight, or the structure of flight for a fly or a butterfly, I could not explain other than God created it, because I know God created it. So that was something that I pulled out of my own mind, because I didn't want to be interrupted with information on the internet. So at that point in my life, I neglected to look for information. I was kind of just pulling stuff out of the air, and I started to do something about linguistics, about how the voice is there, and there's nothing to replicate that sound. So we give a sound, and then there are symbols that represent the sounds we make. And that made me think about how did language first come about? How did anybody start to write these puffs of sound as symbols and learn it or teach it as a written language? So if you can imagine the voice speaking, if you take away the fact that there's symbols that represent this speech in whatever language you're speaking in, then you can sort of look where language came from, that these puffs of sound enable. And you could think, well, who taught people from the beginning? If if you don't believe in God, the God that gave speech, then how did evolution? And I still don't know how evolution explains speech. And I've never looked, to be honest, because I've looked myself. After seeing God, my life became very different, and I looked for things, hoping to gain information maybe from God, and to be able to get people to believe in God as much as I do. And it seems very difficult that somebody sat there, because you as a person, if you're watching this video, you probably don't even realise that you're making puffs of sound, or making different sounds, and them sounds that they don't sound like sounds, do they? They're words, but really they're not words. They're just sounds, and they're not depicted by individual symbols. So a noise that comes out of your mouth would be very difficult for somebody to associate a symbol with every puff of sound that the voice makes, because it sounds fluent. So with me speaking English, if I say anti-disestablishmentarianism, if I say that, how can I hear myself speak? Because somebody who taught language or the alphabet or whatever, they must have listened to their own voice and then separated the sounds that the voice makes and gave individual symbols. Not only that, they gave 24 in the English alphabet, didn't they? So they give 24 symbols to sounds that only sound fluent. So to separate anti-disestablishmentarianism, if you're saying anti-disestablishmentarianism, you try to make your own language from that. So if you're trying to make your own language, all you're going to do is add a sound, get a sound, and add a symbol to that sound. Now you try and do that. It seems very difficult to me that somebody sat there and managed to separate the sounds. Not only that, you've got people speak in different tones. Their voice tones, they're deeper, they're lower, they're higher. And if somebody was like studying how the voice transmitted, they would have found it very difficult to add a symbol to recognize an individual sound. So if you're recognizing an individual sound and implementing a symbol that represents that sound, you then come across this, well, how did somebody put these symbols, that they can be in any order, can't they? But when you write in gobbledygook or make a load of random characters, as I see them now, see, I don't see language now as letters. I see them as symbols, because that's where I believe language came from. God gave the language, but if you think we evolved, then somebody would have had to have sat down and separate these sounds that we make. So having that in mind, the fact that sound is produced and then symbols are produced, I sort of neglected the site I was building at the time, because I wanted to learn internet marketing. I wanted to change the money in my life. I wanted to, by faith, achieve
Your call can't be taken at the moment.
to change my life. And maybe by faith, I could then revert back to trying to get people to believe in God by disproving evolution, if you like. So by disproving evolution, I was hoping to change the balance of things, if you like. And like I say, the thought of language being represented by symbols, you probably didn't even realize this, and you probably don't. So with being at a keyboard day in, day out for the past how many years, I sat at my keyboard one day looking at the language on the keyboard, and I wasn't looking at it as language, I was looking at it as symbols. And then I started to think, well, if you could have different symbols, because there was I don't know what made me think of security at the time, or online security, or online securing online devices. It wasn't something I was looking for, but the thought that the entry point to the PC would be the keys on the keyboard. So if you could alter them, you would be able to alter the way that things are accessed. So the first installment, the very first thing that I thought of was making a device, putting it onto a USB or something like that. And these are simple ideas because these ideas are only from knowledge that I know. I can't give any greater knowledge than what I've received or what I know myself. So, for instance, if I worked in an electrical device shop or something like that, or I was in an environment where there was IT engineers and I've come up with this idea, I'd probably see this completely differently in many different ways. But I can only give the surface, if you like, of the idea. So the surface of the idea is the implementation of changing symbols, because I didn't look at language like most people look at language. I looked at it as symbols that represent sound. This is how I came up with it being a security solution. The realization that the keyboard is the access point to the PC, and it's easy to understand that if you change symbols and you can create, I didn't realize at that time that I've created locks and keys very easily digitally, and this is something that's been around for a long time in houses and things, on doors and things. So I had problems with it because I thought you could create a device. It could be like a credit card device. And then because I thought it could be a credit card device, this information led to it going on to credit cards. So you could probably use the symbols to, in some way, in the banks for your bank cards. And I thought there's another way of using it. And then because I build websites and I've been self-teaching website and online and things like that, I've gone into cPanel, I've gone into WordPress, because WordPress is what I use, and I've learned little bit snippets of code and things like that. And when you look at the files inside of a website, the URL at the top is, if you go onto a payment portal, that / and then random characters is a file with all the information of people that are paying and things like that. But that's secured, isn't it? But hackers try to get into this, and if you've not got the financial backing to secure things like that, then I thought, well, if you could change them symbols to symbols that cannot be implemented elsewhere. So the first instance, I thought, having a keypad, something with a USB at the side, a simple idea. You can't have the same symbols on everybody's keyboard, because then you're not solving really any problems, are you? So because then making symbols, it's infinite, that you can have as many symbols as you like. So I thought in first instance, and I entered Sir Richard Branson's Pitch to Rich, but for some reason people did not, I don't know, it's like I've been screaming out I've got this solution, And I didn't realise how strong a solution it could be. But because I didn't know the workings of a keyboard, but if you can replicate the letter P by a symbol, you're still using the keyboard just with different symbols. You could lock files with these. And the notion that it would be a security measure would be if you've got 7 billion people around the planet with different keys, then somebody over, say, America, if they're trying to access your files, if they can't suppress the key, firstly they can't program the they can't program a bot or something to look for them keys, because I presume when you're programming, I did a little bit of programming when I was a kid, and I think it was I forgot what you call it now, but it say x equals y then go to, basically. So if you've got x equals y then go to, if this is the way that programming works, you can't tell it to go to a symbol that it hasn't got. So I know nothing about programming, only these little bits. So I thought, how would that affect, and then binary, and then if somebody's creating an image, they might be creating a JPEG or a PNG. I did find solutions around these, but I didn't really know what it was that I had. So I was living by faith that I'd achieved something. I believe this security solution must have been given by God in some way, because I can't believe I myself thought of it. But you know, it seemed so simple, and by faith I thought I would try and achieve, and I didn't really realise what I had. And if you look at this on the whole, if you think the whole world can use self-created symbols, then you're looking at something massive. You're looking at something that every corporate company will probably use. Every company that uses the internet will use it. So that's every company on the internet. Anybody that makes PCs and keyboard, because like I say, Microsoft could actually implement a keyboard and they could send keyboards out. They could have something that makes these symbols and incorporates it into the programming somehow. Or even not, if them symbols are just created like keys on a keyboard, then if they can't be suppressed or they can't be found, I didn't know whether that was the case or not. Could they be found? Could they be programmed to be found? If they could be found, could they be suppressed elsewhere? So then there's a bit of a solution there, but there's a bit of a thought, I haven't got the knowledge for that. So the knowledge of having a security solution was really based on the fact that it came from language, so it's incorporated into a PC, which is language, and also the fact that it's infinite. So in the way that something works when it's infinite, obviously you know infinite means you can keep creating these symbols time and time and time again, different symbols, like a snowflake. Apparently every snowflake is different. So if every snowflake is different and you've got 7 billion people creating different symbols in some way, that was the initiation, I thought. And then I started thinking, well, what if you can have these keyboards made by Microsoft, or you have something that's in a server or something that, or something like that, that can create random keys and create these keys for keypads, or you know, there's different ways of implementing it. And because it's so diverse, because it is infinite, I thought that's the basis that I must go on. But I couldn't make a product, because it's not the product there that's really the product, is the formula, which is really just an implementation of changing language into symbols. And if we use them symbols, you can use them anywhere. you can use them to lock anything. And it's just like having keys in a door. And I've probably tried to think too deep, really. But this is the problem I had. I was watching a program a bit back, some posh porn, I think it was, and somebody brought an Enigma machine in, and I'd heard of the Enigma machine, but I didn't know what it did, and they thought it was uncrackable. And what they did was they changed symbols as other symbols or other letters or something like that, and they managed to crack it. So this really is, in a way, not of the Enigma machine, because you're not changing a symbol for another symbol. You're actually using a different symbol to be used. So it's actually creating language, if you like. You're not covering another letter with another symbol. You're actually using the symbol. Because if you were just covering another letter, if I was using a squiggle instead of the letter B, then you've still got the letter B there, haven't you? So, but you don't, because my understanding of language came from puffs of sound. I wasn't changing a letter. I was adding a letter to the alphabet, if you like. So these symbols are adages to the alphabet. They stand alone. They're their own. They don't cover another symbol. They stand alone as a symbol to open and close files on any digital device. And the first initiation, I thought, well, if you don't have it on Wi-Fi, then nobody can hack the Wi-Fi. But I'm sure a techie would know how this can be implemented into programming and be very successful. So I realised of late, I mean, I had my faith in God to achieve and to have this security solution out there. And then I realised how big it was. I mean, it's really massive. It's huge. If it does work, if it doesn't work, or it's unusable, it's worthless. It's worth nothing. But if it is usable and it is implemented, then everybody that's got a website, every corporate company on the planet will probably use it. The banks will use it. It's almost like the entire planet and every business on the planet could use this. And that means, if that's so, I could get a share or royalties or a payment from any company that uses this system. So because I didn't know the gubbins of it, if you like, I only know the surface things and where it can be implemented. I can only see the website it can be implemented in. I can only see the keyboard where it can be implemented in. I can only see a suitcase where it can be implemented in. I don't know the software that can be used to do that. So I reached out to a John McAfee. I kept sending him messages saying, look, you say you're passionate about security and you want to take security measures. And he says, okay, tell me your idea. My dad's got cancer. My fiance had septicemia at the time. And I didn't manage to get anything back to him for a few weeks. Anyway, I rushed through a video trying to explain my idea. A little bit excited, a little bit apprehensive. Prolific programmer, he would know the insides and the gubbins of programming, and he would know where it could be implemented more than I, because his knowledge would be greater than mine in the fact that he would know how it could be implemented. And he also would probably see the size of it, the size and the sheer volume of monetary value that this system could hold. So it doesn't seem right that somebody would just shrug somebody off for receiving an idea that could be so massive that the entire world will use it every online device, every phone, every computer, every website and everything. This is why I believe that God enabled me to find this knowledge. And by faith, I tried to achieve. So after John McAfee saw this video, I'm not saying he has stolen the idea, but I know how massive this idea could be. I know if it's rubbish, it's worth nothing, but I don't know. I've not been told. John McAfee, he watched the video, and then after watching the video, he sent me a message saying, no, in fact, he didn't contact me for a few days after seeing it. So I sent him a message and I got no reply. I sent him another message, I got no reply. I sent him another message, I got no reply. I wasn't spamming him, I just wanted a reply, you know. I wanted a reply from him because it was something that was big and massive in my life. I needed either rid of it or I needed it to do something in my life. And after about 3 or 4 messages, he sent me a message saying, I can't help you. Please stop messaging me. So I was no further forward. So he didn't tell me whether he liked it. He didn't tell me whether he didn't like it. So what's the first thing you presume? What's the first thing anybody would presume? The first thing anybody would presume is, why is he treating me like that? It is a good idea. It's the foundation for something very strong. And he's just cast me off. He's just told me to do one. So I started putting a couple of messages on Twitter feed. I'm closed down now. He's just blocked me from going on to his site. It's the official McAfee Twitter page, and I no longer have access to that page. And I'm wondering what's happening here. I've had all this faith in God to achieve something. I've come up with something global that really sets me apart for my idea, beyond a reasonable doubt that if my idea is good and implemented, that it will be implemented everywhere. And the monetary value for that could be absolutely astonishing. It could be massive. Now, I can only believe that something like that was given to me by God. Maybe it was my own idea, maybe it wasn't, but the journey I was on was with God, and it was my achievement. And my life now is taking a turn, and I've kind of had my hand forced. I'm like, if I don't do something about this, if I don't get out into the media, if I don't submit it out there, then he'll bring a product out because he's got money, he's got the contacts, he's got people working for him day and night. He just brings a product out, and then my idea is no longer my idea. John McAfee took it. So really, if he has taken it, he's the biggest kind of pond life on this planet, because I'm living in poverty, I'm living by faith, I've got an idea that will actually work, and the proof that it will work is by somebody stealing it. Now, would you trust anybody that would steal an idea from somebody? Would you? Why would I, sitting in a 1-bedroom flat, proclaiming to have faith in God, trying to explain where I got the idea, why would I try to push myself out into the media so strongly if I was trying to take the idea from somebody else? That seems impossible. The other thing is, there is nothing else out there on the market like it. I've not seen anything out there on the market like it. I know that I have come up with the idea from my own knowledge, from my own mind, from my own sources, and the source of the knowledge that gives me the idea is on a website that I created. And I'm just, if he hasn't taken the idea, if he hasn't stolen it, or he thinks it's rubbish, why hasn't he told me? Why hasn't he told me it's any good? Why didn't I sent him a message after he told me to do one, and I says, can you please explain to me whether it's doable or not? Can you please explain to me could you give me the understanding of how it could or could not be, and the reason why it can't be implemented into some sort of security solution, or into a firewall, or into a website, or into Microsoft company? See, I have now given him an idea that he can go to all the corporate companies and make a deal with them for a solution that's mine. And I've got no choice but to think that the idea, again, stems from being infinite. With it being infinite, the fact that I believe God to have given me this idea, or the faith for me to achieve, or at least if somebody steals it to get it back, I've always had that faith, if somebody steals it to get it back. And I just can't comprehend. I must keep fighting this. I must keep going with this. And there's nothing much more I can do, because I know the idea is mine. And the possibilities for it are endless, but I don't have that kind of knowledge. I've got enough knowledge to know that it will work somewhere. As of where, I don't know. So please, can you help me to at least get in front of somebody that's nice? Somebody that will help me make this either into a product, into many products, or companies that want to use this and they want to use the technology and they want to build technology from this, to know that the idea came from me. And I didn't take it from any other sources. Whether I be putting myself into something, I don't know. I just think an idea is an idea. If it can be used, and it can be used to finance something. So as I've got the idea, I could earn some money from the idea. And that was my intention, to earn some money from the idea. How I earn money from that idea, I didn't know. I was looking at patents. I tried to go to Davison's in America. I didn't have the money to give them for the first bit, so I've had no money to invest in this. And I'm just a little bit disheartened that I can't get it in front of an honest person that will give me something back for it. But it's more, I think, of a copyright. Whether I can prove copyright beyond a doubt, I don't know. My faith is in God. I know that the website that I got the information from was my own website, and it started in 2008. The domain name's from 2008, but because I was working on websites, sometime I moved the website to WordPress, and it changed the dates. But I mean, Google might even have, or some, I doubt it now. It's been a while since it's been off Squarespace. I doubt they've got servers that are holding that sort of information. But there is the Wayback Machine. Yes, there's the Wayback Machine. I've just thought there's a website online, and it's called the Wayback Machine, and you can go back for as far as the website existed. So maybe it will be on there to prove that from 2008 that's where the information come from. So that's me logging off. I really need help with this, and I want to really, this helps consumers and it helps me, and then I can start doing some good things with the money. Thank you.